Knowing this near universal pattern helps to assess new brands and existing ones.
What don't marketers know?
Quite a lot. Marketers largely live in an anything-goes world where the latest fashion or fad drives an awful lot of practice.
Segmentation is the recognition you can't serve everyone with equal satisfaction.
This is the Zach Ansbury Show.
Welcome. On today's podcast clip, we have Professor Jackie Eastman of Florida Gulf Coast University, United States. So you moved to Georgia Southern University?
Yes, because what happened was, as MBA director, I was part of the group with Carl Gooding at Georgia Southern. He was dean at that time. My dean was Ken Stanley, and they worked with Tim Mescon at Kennesaw. They developed this sort of joint Web MBA program. So it was the Georgia Web MBA, and it was a consortium of universities and of smaller regional schools in Georgia that got together. So the idea being that we would draw on different parts of Georgia, that it wouldn't be too onerous on any one school in terms of faculty resources. And then we would have like a big orientation because it was online for all the students. They would meet, form their teams, and then everything was online from there. And so as I got to know people, and then Ron Schiffler became the dean, that Kevin and I sort of knew as our child was born that it was getting much harder to do that commute. He would see me put on a suit and burst out crying. So I'd have to dress like sloppier and sloppier than keep like dress clothes in the office. So we're like, we have to be at the same university. Yeah. And so there was an opening in marketing, but it was on the associate level. And they thought there could be an opening possibly in finance insurance. So that's why when the opening came for Kevin, they made it a full professor because he was a full professor. But mine, they had already gotten all the approval as on the associate level. So that's why I took the associate, step down from a full back to associate.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense, actually. Yeah, that the context of that makes a lot of sense. I can only imagine how hard it is when, you're balancing that career-driven stuff with the family. As you know, that's something that I'm now embarking on. But yeah, I guess at the end of the day, how did you come across it? You decided that you needed to kind of, relocate or readjust or reprioritize? Is that?
Well, I think it was that because when I would go to Valdosta, I might leave at 7:30 in the morning and not get home till after 8 o'clock at night. And then it got to the point that, and we've always been lucky with that they've been very good at putting Kevin and I on different. So I remember Kevin's boss at FSU, he would wait till my schedule came out at VSU, and he would purposely put Kevin teaching the opposite days. So that way one of us could always be home. And then we would have somebody come in the house and sort of watch Nova so we could get work done at home and then for part of the day. And so, but we knew it's okay, we need to all be in the same town.
It's great that they were that flexible. I have found, and it's one thing that I always do tell people when they're coming to me for advice as to whether I should go into industry or an academic career. And the one thing I do say to them is academia is a fairly family-friendly career option. If you're young, it allows you the opportunity to work as many hours as you please. But, and as a parent, you can work early in the morning before your child gets up, or if they're in bed, you can work. So you don't have to be in a set location anymore. You don't necessarily have to be on campus. And it just gives parents the ability to drop off kids to and from school. So that's one thing that I always do flag. And so it's really nice that you had that experience with your husband. and even coordinating 2 universities is phenomenal.
And, I was very early into teaching online with the Georgia Web MBA because that program started in 2001. I mean, we were doing code in HTML for our,
Really?
yes,
Oh my God.
that's how old I am. And I remember when Noah was in grade school, his principal asked me, and again, it was in the middle of the day and he was at an event and I was there.
Yeah.
And she goes, "Do you like teaching online?" And I go, as from a teaching point, I find it's much easier to teach face to face.
Yeah.
Because you get that body language, you can tell right then. Are they getting it? Do you need to go into more detail? You can get that immediate feedback, which is very hard to get online, whether it's synchronous or asynchronous. And so I said, as a teacher, I like teaching both, but it's physically easier to teach it face-to-face than it is to teach the exact same course online. As a working mother, I absolutely adore online because, again, it's like, he would go to bed, and with my online students, they were all working. So they weren't on the course, between 9 and 5. They would get on, in the evening and early morning. So when I was online, that's when they were online anyway. So it worked. I sort of would joke that I work a split shift.
Yeah, really interesting. So, I mean, because Zoom wasn't around in 2001, was it Skype for Business, or there was no video conferencing at all?
No.
No. Was it just audio based, or how was this working?
That a lot of discussion forum. We used to do stuff with chat, but then the problem with chat is by the time you answered one person's questions, there'd be like 10 more questions. And so a lot of the discussion forum, and then like with the group stuff, each group would have a discussion forum, and then you'd sort of learn the flow of the groups. And like, okay, this group tends to be early morning. So like I knew that if I responded early morning, that they'd have time to respond back to me then. And then this other group worked at night. So they'd make a post at 2 a.m. And I thought, okay, I've got till evening, because that's when they're going to get back on.
Okay, that's really interesting. I mean, COVID obviously awful, but thank God for the high-speed internet at the time, right? I don't know how I would have done it. Otherwise, the world couldn't have done it, I don't think. Yeah, I remember pre-COVID and even just the low quality of like WebEx at the time and Skype for Business, and it was really clunky. Nothing worked. Quite often, you would even do trials the day before, and it would then just not work when you actually went live. So, I don't know, even when Zoom was quite new at the beginning of COVID, you used to have a lot of dropouts when you'd have everyone would have their video on, and it would overwhelm the system. I don't know if you remember that. It's so much.
Oh yeah, because Zoom was basically a very small company, and so it went from like small to humongous in basically a 1-month time frame.
And now we can't live without it. Like,
I know.
yeah, I mean, in person, I agree with you. I love being in person. You get that feedback from students, and even because if you have like a 2-hour lecture, you can then feel the energy of the room going, and you're like, this is where I need my break. So you can time your break really well. Online, it's a little bit harder to do that because you're quite often looking at emojis of screenshots of their faces or pictures or something like that. So it's a bit harder. Hi everyone, Zach here again, and just a few quick reminders before you go. If you're listening to the podcast and are considering incorporating it into your secondary school or university courses, then please let me know and I can guide you through the process. If you're enjoying the show and getting some insights from it, then please leave me a 5-star review on your podcast listening platform. It would go a long way to spreading the word. If you know someone who would benefit from this content, then I would be thrilled if you could consider sharing this episode and its knowledge with them. And finally, thank you for becoming part of the community for this show.